going to say I think there are 3 people here who I may not know.
And that's a new face. We want to know who she is.
Well, and we will momentarily, probably. So I want to welcome everyone to our 6th and final History on Location this summer. So I think they've been really great programs. And tonight, of course, we're talking about the Village Hall, the YMCA, and Ashley Lempka is our newest member in the archives and becoming a very talented and part of our group, I think. And then John, who has been involved all summer long with these programs, doing them. So those are the speakers tonight, really. I also, I don't know, I'm going to pass this around. It's for emails. I don't know if any of you, if you have emails and want to put your name. And I don't know how well we've done this summer collecting emails, but we're trying to build up an email base slowly. We're building up an email base. So, I think I'll let Ashley
start.
Yeah,
I can start. I was going to give a little background on the YMCA and kind of how they came to purchasing the land and building the building. So the group YMCA, the Millbrook branch, started in Millbrook in about 1910. And from 1910 until they built this building, they would meet at the Grace Church, or they would meet at the Women's Christian Association of sorts.
Yep.
That was at the J. McLaughlin building now. But they kept growing and growing, and then eventually, and I think in about like 1911, they decided that they needed a building so that they could host events and activities and have a bigger space. So they started a campaign, kind of spearheaded by one of the Thorns, who was a member of the YMCA, who's one of the directors. And you have a little story about that, right?
I have a little story that it's via David Greenwood, that Samuel Thorne was the one to say, okay, 1912, we need to begin the building, and it's going to cost us $40,000. So he put down $20,000, and he said, and you have 5 days to collect the other $20,000. And it came down to the evening of the 5th night, and they were short $4,000. But Oakley Thorne came running in, waving his check. It was from Mrs. Lamont, who gave $4,000 and pulled them through. So they had the $40,000 to begin the building, and I just think that was kind of a fun story because it gives you a sense of the sort of a little urgency and passion for what they were doing.
And you can see here they created this little marker each day, October 9th through 14th, and the amounts that they needed, where they were recording how much they ended up getting.
So it has 40,000 on there.
Yeah, 40,000. So they did end up raising the money, and they purchased this land in 1912. There was a house on it. It might have been set back a little bit. It's not really clear where it was located, but they had to purchase that house for $3,500. Knocked it down. Then they purchased a plot of land behind also, and it gave them the space to build this. This building cost, I think, $57,000 all in all to build. They used an architect from New York City, and they used a contractor from Cornwall Landing. It was Mead and Taft was the name of them, who were pretty well-known builders at the time. And the architect was James Ware, and he was from New York City, and he actually did a part of the Mohawk Mountain House as well. So I think maybe they got connected somehow that way. So the building was erected in 1914. The athletic field was added at a later date. The building, if you flip through that book, you can see there's some pictures of the bowling alley that was in the basement. So they had a bowling league. They had meeting rooms. John said that at one point they hosted the kindergarten class upstairs.
For several years, yeah.
Which is interesting.
Up in the rec room?
Yeah.
Yeah. They hosted dances, basketball games, Halloween parties. I mean, they had the bowling, the boxing, all sorts of sports events and activities. However, in 1933, so about 20 years after they built it, they had a really rough year, and they ended up turning it from the YMCA into the community center. Had the same activities, they added more activities, but it just was no longer an association to the YMCA. And when you look for information on this building, a lot of the information revolves around their baseball team, the Millionaires. I don't know if any of you had heard of them or know anything about them, but they named themselves after there apparently being so many millionaires that resided in such a country town. They were actually a semi-pro baseball team. They were at their peak in the 1920s and 30s. Some of the players were inducted into the Dutchess County Hall of Fame. I mean, they were pretty good. Their crowds would range from like 1,000 sometimes to 3,000. They would come from Newburgh, they would come, from Armenia, Dover Plains. This was pre-television. There was no television. Not everybody had a car, so these were the events that you waited for and couldn't wait to come to. And when I was researching, something interesting was that a lot of people that didn't live here and came here for the games loved the town so much that they ended up moving here. So I thought that was interesting too. Yeah, even then. I mean, it's always had that charm. So that was pretty prominent aspect of this building, was the baseball field and the games. Except in 1950s when they knocked down the original elementary school and they built the new one, that kind of took up a lot of the field, so kind of dissipated and just disappeared. And then in 1986 it became Village Hall, the Town Rec Department, and then the Historical Society is in the basement. And that's right now where the bowling alley was. The Boy Scouts and the Historical Society kind of divide that up. Also, I was reading that in the 90s, they used the gym as overflow for some of the gym classes at Elm Drive. So it seems like a lot of kids come in and out of this building. Yeah, gone through the generations. So if you look through that book, you'll see a lot of the pictures are of the sports teams that played here. Some of the original photos of the front of the building, which had a little vestibule, which is obviously not here anymore. There was a stone wall that went from here to there. There's actually a little bit of it down there. You can kind of see it under the ivy. Next time you walk by, have a little look at it.
How many people remember that stone wall here? Okay.
Just Henry and I.
Yeah?
Yeah, when
Okay.
did it come down? Because that's what I was thinking.
I never thought about it. Before me, I think.
It's here,
No, I
these
think I
pictures.
remember
Yeah, it's in
because
some
we
of
would
these
walk
It's
down
right
to
here.
church and we'd sit on
Yeah,
the
that's it.
wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it went right down to
If you
where
look-
those bushes are, and it went
you might
all the
have
way
one
to the
in-
back of the building.
Yeah, one of those shows it pretty well.
I remember coming up like behind it somehow because I was doing.
Or was it in the
We did gym
notebook?
here. You don't remember gym?
Oh, I thought you had that one. Maybe I was. If you look in the notebook, you can see a picture of the stone wall. It's the same one that's in front of the library on Franklin Avenue. There's like a little bit of that stone wall there. And apparently there was a little bit of that stone wall on Franklin in front of that house on the corner there. And John also said that there was a house right there.
Over there where that big fat tree is.
Yeah.
There was a house there till maybe 15 years ago.
15.
Really?
And it's in some of these pictures.
Well, it must have been.
Part of it, anyway.
Wait, so right where the lawn is?
Yeah. There was a house there till about 15 years ago.
Yeah, if I can just grab this for a second, I can point out some of the photos. I think it was. So here in this picture, you can kind of see the stone wall.
Yeah.
It's not a great photo, but
I'll walk the top of
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'll
And
bet.
when next time you're there, look at that. It's interesting. You were saying that they had the top curved, right? So that you couldn't.
Yeah.
Top
Yeah.
is not flat.
No, you're
And
right.
here's another picture where you can kind of see the
it was
vestibule a
smooth.
little bit better. There's the stone wall again.
When was
Would
it
you like to
removed?
sit
You said
down?
you don't know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I would say maybe in the 50s or 60s.
I
My
don't
dad
know,
was born
but
in 56
we have a
and he
sign-up
remembers it
sheet for
growing up.
emails.
So it must
I
have been
haven't
then.
done that many emails.
This is inside the gym, which I'm sure most of you have.
I remember them talking about the bowling alley. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Oh yeah, there's a picture of the bowling alley in here too. The
We
Millbrook
did bowling
Millionaires.
alley. We did bowling alley. Maybe my age didn't.
Here's an interesting photo. This is taken right over there. Here's that house that John was talking about. You can kind of see. And then across the street, I don't know if you can see, in that parking lot there was a building which it was the Friends Church, right?
Yes.
But then you said it turned into Knights of Columbus.
Knights of Columbus.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
right there it was.
Yeah.
There was the Knights of Columbus too.
Oh, separate?
Yeah,
John,
later,
did you see
later. It was one
Yeah,
building.
They
later on
make
it was the
anything
Knights of
basketball.
Columbus.
Yeah.
I think
Here's the picture of the bowling alley.
Is that the Thorn building?
Yeah.
And that could be me setting pins down there. I did it all through high school. They had 2 bowling alleys, and you set the pins by hand.
It's
And
interesting, 'cause you said.
I'm going to get to that when I start talking.
You go ahead, you can, I mean, that's the logistics of the building and the association and kind of how it changed hands along the way.
Well, you go
John
back,
has some better stories.
since the middle of 1940s, 40s, 50s, 60s, into the middle 50s, this has been the hub of the community. You take in the 40s up to the mid 50s, people there was no television, and there wasn't much to do in Millbrook. This was used all the time. There was basketball games 4 or 5 nights a week, 2 bowling alleys in the cellar, and they were used 4 or 5 nights a week, 2 shifts. Did you bowl down there?
I bowled down there.
Yeah. And upstairs there was a kindergarten, but all winter they had basketball games 4 and 5 nights a week. And in some of these pictures, there's a man standing on the right. His name was Bill Kane. And during the 30s and 40s, he was the coach of all the Millbrook teams. 1940 or 41, the state passed a law. If you don't have a college degree, you can't be a coach or a teacher. And he didn't. He never went to school. He was loved here. Remember Bill Kane?
Oh yeah.
Eventually, after he got let go, he became a plumber here in Millbrook. But it's too bad because he was well loved. But also, out back, all the way along Elm Drive, all the way out there, there was baseball field, there was 2 softball fields, there was, when I was a kid in high school, it was 1 raggedy tennis court. It wasn't very good. But regular people in Millbrook, very few played tennis. Only at the Millbrook Golf Club did anybody play tennis. Now they have 2 beautiful courts right there. And there was slides and swings and sandbox when you bring the kids. And on a Sunday afternoon, the Millbrook Millionaires would play baseball. And they were, as good as they were semi-pro, they were from Millbrook, most of them, and some of them from Pleasant Valley and Poughkeepsie. It wasn't that they paid people to come here and play. But it was nothing on a Sunday afternoon to get 1,500 or up to 3,000 people here. Why? Because there wasn't anything else to do. And people loved baseball, and they loved it, and there was a lot of betting here in Millbrook. In fact, Henry's brother, John, used to go around. They used to walk around like in the 3rd or 4th inning with a jar to get donations from everybody. And that paid for the umpire. The umpires didn't get much in those days. They might get $4 or $5 a game. But whatever was, they said it was for umpires, but later on it was for beer up the shade, up at the grape shade. But anyway, it was a big deal on a Sunday afternoon there. And it was that way for years. And during the summer nights, there was softball leagues on those 2 fields up above. So everything here was really, really busy. What was interesting, it shows in the picture there, but right over here, this white strip going around, this porch and this cement wasn't here. That strip went all the way around. It's like 6 inches out from the wall and 8 inches deep. When we were kids, that was a big contest. Who could go all the way around without falling off? And we used to, as kids, put up a quarter or something. And if you fell, you had to go back and start over. And eventually, some of us got pretty good at it, but you had to hold on to windows and wires and everything. That was a big thing here in Millbrook. So, but to this day, this building is still used every day, not only for the village hall. They have zoning and building meetings here. They have phys ed in the gymnasium. Now, when I was in high school, I got out in '61. Millbrook had no athletic facilities for the high school. So every time it was compulsory to have gymnasium classes or gym classes. And we would walk down from the high school to here, and we had an hour, and we would play, quit 10 minutes early, take a shower, and when we were going up, another class was coming down to play. But Millbrook never had a gymnasium or sports facilities until they built the school up in Alden Place.
Didn't matter what the weather was, we still walked down, rain,
Oh, yeah.
snow, it didn't matter.
And you had to go to phys ed or have a written note from your parents why they didn't want you to go. Just like it was over here with religion every Monday. You had to say you had to go to religion or have a note why you didn't have to go. So, anybody got any questions about the building?
I know John Kading, at one of the programs we had, said that he used to sell ice cream in the gazebo, didn't he? John sold ice cream in the gazebo
And soda,
and soda.
we peddled it.
You peddled it around.
Yes, we did.
Younger brother had to help.
Helen and I did.
I'll bet.
It's
I'll
still
bet you
there.
did.
No, that was.
What was funny, his
Oh,
brother
it was?
John was one of the guys that helped collect donations. Remember Harold Wing,
Yeah.
Ed Osika, not Eddie, the other one, Al. And they go along, and some people put in 50 cents or $1. And Al Osika had a gorilla voice. What's the matter? You can't afford more than that. And everybody would turn and look. So they got to the point where they would throw in another buck or two, and Al had a heck of a loud voice. So,
I have a question.
yes.
It's a more recent times, but was this ever, no, please don't. Was this ever used for a haunted house?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the basement.
Do you remember?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
in the
remember that
basement.
growing up. So scary.
Peter Wing used to do it.
Oh my God, I would
Yeah.
cry.
Remember
cry.
that?
And
Yeah, I went to there.
he would decorate all the way down the bowling alleys and everything.
Scared to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people jumping out at you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was.
John, where was the gazebo? Because that other one's new, isn't it? Or
The cupola up there?
the gazebo-y thing.
Gazebo.
I think it's going
here's-
under. Yeah, here
here's a
it
picture.
is in its.
Yeah, I saw that, but that one was newish. I don't think that's.
Oh yeah, well you're going back, to the 1920. So over the years it started rotting, needed a roof and this and that, and they've been doing stuff to it now.
I think this is not the original.
I meant to look at it before I
I
came
think
again.
it's new. I seem to remember them putting it up. I don't know.
And
And the
jump
tennis
around and
courts,
look.
by the way.
It is.
Say that again?
The tennis courts, by the way, in case you don't know, that they do need resurfacing, and there is a fund they're trying to get together to
Oh,
resurface,
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
which is the village thing.
Okay.
Just so.
Well,
Because
what
there's-
I was saying, they had basketball all winter long up there. Down on the first floor, it would only hold about 50 people, spectators. And there was a balcony went all the way around the gymnasium. It was 4 feet wide, hanging on pipes from the ceiling. And up there they might have got 100, 120. So if you wanted to get to a basketball game, you had to get here earlier. You weren't going to get in. There was- Now they've got, for years ago, they shut down that balcony. They're worried about, liability and everything.
Did they at one point try to get everyone to stop stamping?
Oh,
Okay.
no, but when I was a kid, they would stamp and that whole thing would shake, the
Yeah.
pipes up there, and dust would come down. There's steel beams in the ceiling, and dust would come down. And another thing in there, they had big lights hanging from the ceiling down for basketball games and stuff. And if you were too far out and you shot too high, you'd hit a light. That was out of bounds. You lost the ball and everything. Yeah. But you know, this goes back a long ways. So,
1914.
yeah.
A little bit more about the gazebo. I think there's interest now also in restoring that.
Yeah, it's falling. They have yellow tape all around
Yes,
it.
that's right.
It's never used. I would just say something. I haven't seen it used. I walk that
That's true.
a lot of times.
I've
I never see anyone in there. It's not really big enough for anything inside.
Yeah.
Did they ever have music on it? A music,
Oh, they probably did. I don't remember any music up there though.
okay.
No.
So
It was just
mostly
there.
Just to sell ice cream and soda out of.
Yeah.
But the story is that, well, we're not sure, but there's talk about whether James Ware also had anything to do with the gazebo, the first one, the original, because of some of the architectural features on it and how they may match along. There are houses along this street even that he may have had influence on, in addition to Bennett College or Halcyon Hall that he did design, James Ware designed. So that needs to be looked into a little further. We're researching it, but haven't really. It's sort of hard to find the gazebo information specifically, but
I mean, I guess the best thing would just be to go up and look at it.
yeah. I actually took photos one day. It has a lot of work, and I'm not sure if that's the same as it is now. So, okay. Well,
Any questions or anything for anybody?
There's a house here. Who owned that house, do you know?
Yeah, I do know. I have to find it in my notes.
you know, and what I'm thinking too is that 1910 is when they purchased the property.
Yeah.
And if we think about it, this was the Haight Farm, right? And
Oh, that's right.
and Frank,
all Haight
it was all Haight Farm all the way up to
Yeah.
North Maple Avenue, Upper Maple Avenue. And Franklin Merritt died in 1896. And prior to that, in 1891, he had given those lands over to the Land and Improvement Company. So I was thinking, we have access to deeds. It would be fun to look to see who bought this lot first.
It was
maybe-
Michael Fitzpatrick.
That's a name from around, yeah.
That's who owned that house.
It's Patrick. That's
Just
interesting.
curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like from the town map from 1913 that it wasn't right here on the street, unless this is not when it was from, but here's the building now, and there's a house here, which isn't there, so it would make sense if it were that
And it's
house.
interesting they put that house that far back.
Yeah, and it says to be
onto-
removed, so, yeah,
1913.
1913.
So before this building actually, well, 1912 to 14, it was finished in 14,
Right.
this building, so they had to take it down. Wonder if there's a foundation back there.
I know, there could be.
Can you see that?
Yeah, so there are ways to find out. But it's kind of fun to think of the development along this street, I think, and the parcels that were sold piece by piece. I know Oakley Thorne bought one of these in the later 1890s, and I read it and I was trying to figure out which one it might have been, but it was just a rectangular lot, described as a rectangular lot, but he owned one of them. And then when the tribute gardens came along, they had a gardener for the tribute gardens, and in some of those minutes of the Millbrook Garden Club, they say, and Oakley Thorne is providing the housing for the gardener.
Heidebald, his name was.
Oh.
He was German. He lived 3 houses down here.
3 houses down from here, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I knew him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
He had a
good.
nice blonde-haired daughter, too.
Oh, leave it to Henry.
I know, I do.
Yeah.
Right down here.
Oh, 3
Henry.
houses down.
Name was Vivian. She was Vivian.
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
gorgeous.
Vivian
She was
Heidebald.
very pretty. I remember that.
Did you have a crush too?
She's only one grade ahead of me.
Judge Maury's house?
Thanks. That was the balcony he was talking about.
Okay, well, those are fun.
You could kind of see a little
But
bit.
maybe that's it.
Did they
Maybe
do
that's all the
basketball
news we
there
have.
even in
Well,
like
when is Brad's
Yeah,
presentation?
I mean, every morning
We
I
should